All dreams considered. All dreams considered. All dreams considered.
And welcome back to All Dreams Considered with Sarah. And today I am speaking with my friend Kathy, who I've known for, 3-4 years now.
I think so.
And we met synchronistically at a wine bar, and we just really hit it off. It was me and a friend of mine, and you and your husband, and we all just really clicked. And we're talking. Oh, that's right. You were talking with my friend about Feng Shui, because she's an organization, an organizer, and so I remember she was getting a lot of tips from you, and I was just fascinated with your conversation. And then when I got my place, it just stuck in my head that I wanted, to have you over and have you do the Feng Shui analysis on my space. And I'm so glad I did. It changed my life, I believe.
That's fabulous. Fabulous.
So anyway, go ahead and say a few words about yourself. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take over.
No, that's fine. Well, as Sarah said, I'm Kathy, and I am a Feng Shui consultant. And it's something that has occupied my life for almost 20 years now. And it's just a practice that I initially began doing for myself, my home, and my family's homes. And then it just kind of branched out from there as people came to me and asked for advice and help and so forth. And so now it's something I do, and it brings me a great deal of pleasure to help people in any possible way. Mm-hmm. As we were talking about a few minutes ago, how people seem to be returning to home in the sense of a place where they can hang out and enjoy it and make it the center of their lives. Mm-hmm. And so that's a wonderful thing, and Feng Shui certainly facilitates that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think now you're right. Now is the time when a lot of people would probably really appreciate your services more than ever, because they are focusing on how do I make my home, the center of my life, like you said. And because it used to be that we were trying to live, well, not everybody. We've always had introverts and people that were very well established in what they liked, but a lot of us, myself included, were trying to figure out what do I like, and I was believing that I should be going out a lot. I should be, home was not someplace I should be spending a lot of time. That was very selfish or very, had negative connotations before the pandemic, I think, to be a homebody.
And you took that word right out of my mind. Yeah. Well, and the idea of a homebody is not necessarily, a bad thing. As some of us are nesters. We love that, and others are, they like to get out and about, and that's fine too, It's just that I think everyone needs a place to come to roost from time to time. And those of us who need that place daily, that's wonderful. And some of us, maybe just once a month.
Wow.
If even that. I think about people I know who travel a great deal, and they love to see the world, and it's a marvelous lifestyle, and home for them is just a place to briefly recharge before they go out again.
Right.
And go after whatever it is they're seeking or just exploring. And that's great too, And then there are others who, they just need a firm foundation, something to return to every day. They need some place that's like a sanctuary where they know they can go and just be at peace and retreat from the world. So, and in between you have everything else, It takes all kinds, and it takes all sorts of homes, habitations for all of us. And this applies just not only to your home, but also to your place of work. Some people travel for work, some people are on the road a lot, and others are established in a brick and mortar building, and others still work from home. So
do you consult for people that have offices as well? Do you go into their office and give them advice?
I have done a couple of those, and the goals are a little different in an office space, a workspace, than they are for a residential building. But, you know, the principles we apply are similar, very similar, you know, which is creating a flow of good energy, balance, and a sense of well-being, and matching the space to the person who occupies it as best as possible. So, yeah, the principles are there, and it's always interesting. You know, I think that my favorite type of work is with residential homes, you know, because it's so personal.
Right.
And you have greater opportunities to do certain things, whereas you may be a little more limited in an office building just because of the constraints of, you know, construction, or, you know, whoever happens to occupy the building, the office next to you, that sort of thing.
Right.
So,
right, and a lot of office buildings don't allow you to make structural changes.
That's true. So you have more limitations in that kind of setting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I will be including with the video how people can contact you, so I'll get that from you after. Actually, I already know most of it, but
All right.
when you talk with people just out and about, what are some of the common issues, you know, that people are coming to you, or when they hear, oh, you do Feng Shui, what's one of, you know, do they ask you, oh, I have this problem, how could it help? Or do they, I mean, what do people talk to you about?
Well, it tends to be a bit more general initially. They'll ask me things like, well, what's the best way to do this or that? Or, you know, we'll let this truck go by. Okay, your listeners might like to know we're in beautiful downtown Sherwood.
Yes. We are. We're in a coffee store.
It is lovely. It's a darling town. So, now, what were we talking about?
I was talking about the common things that people, when,
right.
when they meet you, what they ask.
It varies. Initially, people might be a little guarded about what they want to really discuss. In general, they want to enhance their work, their careers, their family life, and they just want to know if their homes are set up well. You know, and that's kind of a vague term. After some more in-depth discussion with people, if they should pursue, you know, a consultation, things come out about what they really and truly are after. And it can run the gamut from, oh, I need to make more money, I need more income, I need more harmonious relationships with my children, I need to find a partner in life, or I just need to feel more at peace in my space. It feels awkward, it's not that comfortable, and I want to make it more comfortable.
Right.
So lots of various things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is the impact of things like clutter or broken things that when we have those around us? How does that affect us?
You know, and clutter, that's another subjective term, because what is clutter to you or me might not be to someone else.
Oh, good point.
And so it's more a matter of looking at an environment and the person who occupies it, and let's see how they're functioning. Are they comfortable? Do they feel like they're getting as much done as they'd like to? Are they being effective? And if not, what's the impediment there? And then you have to look around at what they have in their space. If it's a workspace, if it's their house, is there a lot of superfluous stuff in that space that might be an impediment to them actually getting to what they need to do?
Right.
For instance, a dear friend of mine, she is a crafter. She likes to make things, and her problem is she can't get to her supplies because there's too much stuff in the way. And to get to it, she'd have to unpack all these boxes and move all sorts of things and go through closets and whatnot. So she's not doing what she loves to do because the materials she needs are not at hand. They're not
Right.
easy to grab. And, you know, being sort of a crafter artist, inspiration strikes, and when it does, you really need to jump on it. And
Right.
if you don't have the things you need to record that thought or make that object, you know, or paint that picture as it comes into your head, wow, you could lose it. You know, it could just fly right out the window. And
Right.
so she was experiencing a lot of frustration about this. And so we looked at her space in ways that maybe she could rearrange things. Put the stuff that she doesn't need every day, put that away in the closet and bring forth her art supplies.
Right.
And so she tried that, and it involved kind of a change of mindset. So she would generally work at her dining room table. And of course, you know, the dining room, she had the china hutch and all this, and all these things, lovely things in there. And all of her surfaces, countertops, the surface of tables and whatnot, were covered with things that were more decorative objects, but things that she did not use, seldom used. So we talked about, you know, is there a possibility maybe some of these things could be packed away or maybe distributed to your children or friends or whatnot. Or, you know, you can always sell them, give them away, donate them, whatever. And so, she, you know, she looked at things, really gave them a critical eye, thought about it very carefully. And so she made space.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, she created space, not just to bring forth her art supplies, but also to bring forth an opportunity.
Right.
And as soon as she did that, she felt better.
Mm-hmm.
And she was able to start creating. And it just made a difference for her well-being. You know, it was something very important to her that she hadn't been able to do for a while, simply because the things she needed for her artwork were not accessible, readily accessible.
And did you, was her dining room the optimum space in her house for her to be doing this creative work? I mean, did you look at the bagua and, or does it work like that?
Yes and no. The bagua, for your listeners, is in a sense a map of sorts based on the trigrams of the I Ching. And it is based on compass points. And we use this in reference to the various areas of a home. And each area is governed by a certain aspect of life. The creative process is in the Western aspect of the bagua. So sometimes you can place a bagua over a house floor plan, and it fits nicely, neatly into the geometric shape of the rooms that comprise the house. Most often, though, it doesn't, because no home is going to be perfectly, you know, symmetrical. So in the case of that one friend, she had kind of a rectangular ranch house. And as I recall, the Western aspect, her dining room did occupy part of the Western aspect. So I think that worked out for her. But just from functional, you know, practicality, she had a big dining room table there, which was a good workspace for her because she really didn't have anything else in the house that would have lent itself to being used as an art space. And, you know, you can use a room for multiple purposes. The dining room space, it can always be cleared up. And in her case, I suggested she use her china hutch to store her art supplies so that if she was going to have dinner, have guests, whatever, she could pack everything up neatly, tuck it away, and there's a nice open table to serve a meal on.
Right.
So, you know, a lot of these ideas regarding Feng Shui just have to do with practical aspects, making life more functional, more efficient. And using the things that serve you and that will help enhance your abilities to accomplish whatever it is you want to do.
Right, because we are all so unique.
That's true.
And we've been trying to fit into these molds of this is who I should be based upon what I've been told by society, but that's not, and I think that's what we're seeing right now is that a lot of people are like, wait, who am I?
Yes, yes.
What do I like?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, in most homes, you know, you want to make it a very personal place where you're comfortable. If you have a family, you have to consider all of the people who live in the house. You know. If you entertain a lot, it's nice to bring in a few elements of other things, colors, textures, whatever that might make other people comfortable. Right. Some folks are minimalists. Some people like darker palettes. Some like a gray and black and white palette. And, you know, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. Other people who come into that space might feel a little more at ease if they see a pop of color. So you can always, you know, incorporate a few things in your home, thinking about others if you do have visitors.
Right.
Or frequent visitors, and you know their personality types and that sort of thing. But by and large, if it's your home, you want it to serve you. It has to support you and your endeavors, your life purposes. And so that's at the core of Feng Shui.
I love that. So it sounds like most of the things that we know about Feng Shui in popular culture may or may not apply to everyone, is what I think I'm hearing you say.
Well, most of the things that you hear in popular culture about Feng Shui are probably not based on ancient traditions and ancient practices, but more kind of pop culture ideas, gimmicks, things that don't necessarily have much of an impact. So often you hear about things such as, oh, well, if you put chimes here, or you do this, or you do that, you know, you're going to have good luck, this sort of thing, you know. Feng Shui isn't so much about pursuing luck or financial success so much. It is a much deeper philosophy than that. It has much more to do with achieving balance and harmony with nature and with the universe. That's a much deeper topic, a much deeper pursuit. So there are various layers of Feng Shui. A lot of what you see out there on social media is a lot of the popular hype that goes around out there. As I said, it's a very ancient practice that goes back thousands of years in China to an agrarian society. At its inception, Feng Shui was based upon observations. People would look at their neighbors and observe that, gee, this person has a very happy, content, peaceful family. This person has done very well, is very successful with his farming or whatever his endeavor. What is it that they're doing that we are not doing? And how can we incorporate some of what they're doing into what we want to do here so that we can have a better outcome in life? And most of the observations were based upon geographical considerations, the siting, the environment. Now, thousands of years ago, the earth was a very different place. It was a very rural, wild place. And weather played a very important factor in how people lived. And people had to function with the vagaries of storms, floods, droughts, what have you. And they were very, very much, their lives were very tied to whatever the weather brought to them. their lives were dependent on what their land, what the earth produced, the water sources that they had to rely on. And so over the course of much time and the accumulation of many observations, certain conclusions were drawn about what constituted the ideal location for a home. What sort of things helped enhance the circumstances of living in a structure? What kind of materials made for the most comfortable, pleasant, harmonious structures? What kind of structures complemented nature? And what kind of structures were the antithesis of nature and clashed with nature? Mm-hmm. And so gradually Feng Shui evolved into this, I wouldn't call it a science so much as simply a philosophical practice. It's very much rooted in the Tao, the principles of the Tao. And there again, it has to do with what it is a person is seeking and trying to accomplish.
Right.
The Tao has to do with man's harmony with the universe and man's intentions, men's intentions.
Yes.
An individual's intentions in life. And if they are in harmony with the universe, in general, things will go well for an individual. And so Feng Shui is all part of that philosophy and part of that pursuit. So
it's all about, if I may reframe it slightly, because I often talk about the waking dream, and if I could translate what you just said, thousands of years ago, people were looking around realizing, hey, there's patterns here.
Yes, absolutely.
And we can actually apply them to our waking dream and improve our waking dream circumstances and the ways that we're experiencing this life.
Very much so.
So it sounds like Feng Shui is really about being conscious on many levels of what's in your environments.
Yes, absolutely. And being observant of things large and small. Quite often, in our haste to get through a day as we live, we dismiss certain things that could be very important. It's very wise to be able to sit down and take stock of your environment from time to time. And just ask yourself, has my environment changed in any way? Is there anything that I'd like to see happen here? Something that would be a nice improvement maybe. Or just sit down and feel the space. What does it feel like? It's a good idea to do that from time to time in your own home. Walk around the perimeter. If you have a yard, take a walk around the perimeter of your yard, and see what's out there, no matter how large or small your property. What kind of creatures inhabit the space that you share with nature?
Right.
And, you can branch out from there to look at the neighborhood that surrounds you. And we live in an age where things change rapidly. Very few neighborhoods are stable any longer. There's so much construction and deconstruction and so forth going on all around us all the time. So that can be rather unsettling. Some changes are very advantageous to our Feng Shui, others are not so much. So it's good to observe all this, and if something feels off, then you can think about employing some Feng Shui principles to mitigate that. The world is full of energy, good and bad. And the idea is to enhance the good. Welcome the good energy.
Just a moment.
Yes. Pause for a truck.
Yeah. Enhance the good energy.
Yes, we want to welcome in the
welcome.
good energy, and we want to do what we can to mitigate the negative energy or block it altogether from entering our homes in the first place. So, yeah, just being observant is a good way to start.
So, this is, as you were talking, what was coming to mind is, you may remember I asked you and your husband for some advice or some help with my drains. I was having issues with my drains.
Yes, I remember that.
Well, and that's in my southwest corner, which I think typically is the romance corner.
Yes, yes.
And I wonder,
or relationships, not just necessarily romantic relationships, but it could be any kind of relationships, friendships, partnerships, what have you.
Well, a corollary is because my drains were, slow drains, clogged drains. What I've found interesting, pausing one moment. Bus.
Yes.
But what I discovered is that a lot of my creativity has become unblocked since the drains have been resolved.
Wonderful. Yes.
So not just, relationships, but I was unable to make progress on, I have all these projects, so many projects, and yet nothing was, I would start things, but I couldn't get them to go anywhere. And now it was very soon after that situation finally got resolved that this podcast came to be, and some other things started moving at
You're
last.
flowing.
Flowing again.
You've got the muse and all your energy's flowing. That's wonderful.
Well, and the clogs weren't necessarily mine. It was actually the whole building was...
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So other people in the building might have been experiencing similar problems.
Right.
And depending on which aspect of their living space was affected, who knows? They might have been blocked, maybe emotionally, creatively, perhaps, financially. Who knows? So clogged drains, folks, are a bad thing. Yeah, they truly are. The only other thing I could say about plumbing that's just as bad would be a leak. You don't want leaky plumbing. No.
So strangely, as part of, just a moment, bus. But as part of that process, the U-bend underneath my sink did get cracked. And so now it has a slow drip.
Uh-oh.
And we've tried several things to fix it, but I think I'm going to have to ask them to just replace the pipe.
Yeah, probably best.
Yeah.
Just replace the darn thing and do it expediently. One thing about having cracked, broken objects, and I'm not talking about, knickknacks, dishes, plates, or anything like that, but parts of the house that are integral to its functioning, be it plumbing, a heating system, whatever. If something is in a state of ill repair, fix it soon, right away, as soon as you can. Because when you fail to fix something that is so vital to the function of your house, it's, in a sense, neglect. If you neglect your home is not going to be able to fully support you as well as it can. And so these things might seem a little odd. However, when you put them into practice, you'll find, as you did, Sarah, in some ways subtle, or perhaps in some ways very grand, you'll notice a change. And you may not even connect the two. But perhaps later you'll have an aha moment and say, oh, well, I did repair that clogged drain. And all of these things started to happen and blossom for me. Or, I really did clean out that really cluttered closet in the prosperity corner of my house. And lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, gosh, I sold that object I wanted to get rid of on Craigslist. Or, gosh, you know, I came into a small little windfall here. Or I got a raise in pay. You know, it's in ways large and small that the effect, the result of Feng Shui will manifest itself.
Wow.
So it's very interesting, you know, and it happens to me. Sometimes I'm thinking, oh, gee, I know better than to allow this, you know, to build up here or to do that, or this is really not good for my energy flow here. I really need to address that. Once I do, sure enough, I see the positive results of that small action. People often think, oh, wow, Feng Shui is too much work. I'm going to have to redo my whole house. I'll have to repaint everything. Oh my gosh, I've just got to clear out everything. And it's not like that. Small steps, incremental steps can have a pretty pronounced cumulative effect over time. So it doesn't have to be anything overwhelming. It's very seldom that you have to do a major overhaul of a house or a building, whatever, office space.
Right. Well, and in my space, the advice that you gave me after I moved in and I asked you to, you know, I hired you to do my, you know, overview, was to put water in one corner.
Yes.
And since then, I put wine there, I put fish there. You know, I have all these plants. It's like my little oasis inside of my home. And I live in a studio, so it's small. But before, well, I'll start this, but you can chime in at any time.
Okay.
When I first moved into my place, I mentioned that I'd had packages stolen. My aunt had betrayed the family in a way that was very hurtful to me at the time. I've been working on that, but myself, I see now that that was actually a blessing in disguise. I'm still working through that one.
Some things take time, yes.
But you know, because you came and saw my new apartment the day I moved in,
Right.
And then I saw you 2 weeks later, and all this had happened. Why local? But all this had happened in a short amount of time when I hadn't had anything like that, and then suddenly I'm having theft and robbery and betrayal. And you were like, and you immediately knew what that was.
Yes.
And it was the 6 and 7, I think.
Well, yes, and what you're referencing are the guardian stars pertaining to your personal trigram. When I do a Feng Shui analysis, it isn't just the house that we draw up a geometric chart for, but we also calculate the personal trigram of the individual who lives in that home. And then we superimpose this over what we find in the house. Different sections of the house have different energies happening. And sometimes an individual's personal star and those energies represented by that star might be in conflict with some of the energies in a particular location in the house. But there are remedies that can be done to mitigate any conflicts. Sometimes a person's energies can be enhanced. Sometimes a person is beautifully matched with their home.
That's a 10?
Yes, well, that's the ultimate.
Right.
You know, in Feng Shui, a 10, it's very rare. But if you can get a 10 referencing your chart, your personal trigram, and how it matches up with the trigram and the chart of the house. Wow, if you can get a 10, my goodness, you're very fortunate indeed.
Right.
And it's such a rare occurrence. And, you know, it's not to say that if you don't have a perfect 10 in terms of a Feng Shui house, it's not to say that, oh, well, gee, you know, too bad, you're out of luck. No, not at all, not at all. Everyone's home can be, let's just say boosted, use the word boosted, it can be enhanced in order to be more supportive. Likewise, it can also, be not the most beneficial space, and you can do things to your home that are really counterproductive. So,
What's something that you've seen that's counterproductive that you could talk about?
Oh, well, my goodness. Something that it still boggles me is people who will have heavy dark shutters on their windows and keep out the light. For whatever reason. They're sealing themselves up inside their homes and making them like a tomb almost. They're not allowing energy to flow in, beneficial energy, the light. And it's not always a good idea to do that. If you have something very negative outside your window and you need to block the energy from that, that's one thing. But to do that when you have something very beneficial outside, not only to look at, but just a good energy to absorb, you could really, hamper your fortunes and your abilities and your opportunities in life by doing that. Other things are people who have a difficult access just to get into their house. They put obstacles in their way. Stumbling blocks. You have a front door or porch that's so congested you can't get through there without banging into things. That type of thing. Other situations that could be not too helpful. People, and we all have different tastes. Some people like to display artwork or objects that might have very negative connotations, such as weapons or art that depicts scenes of violence, this type of thing. I can tell you a cute story about my niece when she was a child. My brother and his wife often wondered, and they'd ask my mother and I, gosh, Lisa's having terrible nightmares, horrendous nightmares about monsters and ogres and all these terrible things. Well, we looked at what she was watching in terms of movies. The child loved to watch horror movies.
Oh.
Ghastly things, the chainsaw murderers, those sort of things. And she was just a young, impressionable child. So, well, for goodness sakes, is it any wonder that she's having these horrible nightmares? Stop letting her watch such horrible scenes of violence and gruesome acts, And so the same could be said about what you bring into your home. If you're bringing in things that are, harsh, depict cruelty and that type of thing. The atmosphere that pervades from those objects can be really, really depressing and upsetting, disturbing, even. So, and some people find these kinds of things interesting, I suppose, from a historical standpoint. We had some neighbors. The husband, he was a Civil War buff, loved all things about the Civil War. He was a history buff, that's great, but he had a lot of things he collected. Swords, guns, things like that. And he had them all over the place, and his wife did not particularly care for them. And when you walked into their living room, it was sort of like walking into, if not a museum, at least a place, an armory.
Right.
So I think they eventually solved the problem, whereas he took one room of the house and made it his office. And that's where he put all his
memorabilia.
Yeah, his memorabilia, his Civil War things. And a lot of that is very interesting. He had photographs, very interesting historical things. But all the weapons and whatnot, they went in that room too. So, not necessarily a happy space,
right,
but one that's very important to him.
Right.
Sometimes people have to have things like this. It represents injustices that must be addressed. Whoopi Goldberg has a wall in her house. She calls it her wall of shame, where she has artifacts from the slavery era, whips and things that were used on slaves, photographs of slaves, all sorts of implements, the shackles that were put on slaves.
I've seen some shackles for children, which is very disturbing.
Yes, yes. And these things can be, have a lot of negative energy with it. But for Whoopi, that's something very important.
And
Her
she's
wall
kind
of shame, because you address an injustice of the past by putting it out there. You know, and when people come to her house, they're going to see that when they walk in there. Now that's pretty powerful. It really hits you over the head. If you have something like that in your house, it's very important for you to have it. You've got to mitigate all of the impact of that negative history, negative chi there. So
Right.
you have to have the rest of the house be a place of light and of love.
Has she done that? Do you know?
I don't know. I just saw this. She was being interviewed by, I don't know who it was, Barbara Walters or something. This was years ago. And when I saw that, I thought, whoa, you know, that wall of shame. I understand why she has it, but man, I hope she understands, you know, the impact. And I hope she balances those energies in her house.
Right.
So yeah, people can do things to create some negative chi in their home, no doubt. And once they become aware of it, and they want to do something, you know, to balance it, that's great. Some people don't care about that; they don't mind living with that. You know, they might want to have that kind of a darkness around them. So be it. You know?
Right.
As long as they know what they're dealing with.
Right.
You know, that's their individual preference.
Right. Yeah, we all have different tastes and
Oh yes,
things
absolutely.
that we love. And, yeah.
Absolutely, and things that matter to us.
Right. Yeah, it's okay. That's fascinating. So, there's so many things that we could continue talking about. One of the things I wanted to ask you was about the significance of 9.
Oh, 9. Okay, that goes back to the 9 pillars in ancient Chinese tradition. The 9 pillars refer to the way that the trigrams of the I Ching sort of stack up and the energies involved in that. And consequently, the number 9 came to be associated with, somewhat good things, good energies. Some numbers have neutral connotations, some numbers negative. 9 is generally viewed as beneficial. It also, again, depends upon where you find it. In the trigram of a house, looking at the guardian stars that occupy a certain area of the house, 9 may or may not be compatible with the elements in that section of the house, or may not be compatible with the trigram of the individual living there. So in that case, well, 9 is generally associated with fire element, and fire element is high energy, which is a good thing. Unless maybe it's in your bedroom, you might not want that much energy. Maybe you do.
Maybe you do. Depends on your personality, I guess.
It depends on what your goals are there. But yeah, so in general, 9 is considered a beneficial number. Yeah. Other numbers in Feng Shui also hold very positive connotations. 3, 6, 8 being very beneficial numbers. Some are just neutral. They have no real positive connotations or negative associated with them. So
Right.
numbers like 4 and 7 are kind of blah, you know. I shouldn't say blah. I should just say they're just not highly charged. They're not as powerful as other numbers. Feng Shui regards the numbers 5 and 2 as being rather negative. And they're also very powerful. Number 5 is the most powerful number in terms of negative connotations. So when we do the mapping of a house, we find the number 5 located in certain areas, we will see if we need to mitigate that
Right.
with other energies. And,
So in that case, if you have when you lay the bagua of the person and the house on top of each other, and you have the 5 and 5, which is a 10, but nothing else in the house adds up to 10, then that's something that you have to really focus on.
yes.
And
yes.
it would depend on where it is in the house,
Very much so.
how you would address it. Okay.
Yes, yes. As they say, certain areas of the house, for instance, the very core of your home,
The very center.
The very center is considered the area of health and well-being. So you certainly don't want a 5 in there, but if you do, as is the case in my house, the house I live in, we have to mitigate that with certain elements.
And how do you mitigate it in your own house?
Well, a lot of metal.
A lot of metal.
Heavy metal.
For your particular situation.
Yes, in my particular situation, we're using heavy metal, and by that I literally mean objects that weigh a lot that are made out of metal. So we were fortunate enough to find this brass urn that weighs a ton, and we put that right at the center of the house. And our house is not a perfect, not a perfect square or rectangle. It's sort of an L-shaped house, so we have to compensate for the shape of the house in determining the center of the house.
Right.
So anyway, by placing that heavy metal there, it's an anchor, it grounds the house, it grounds the energies, it helps mitigate any negative connotations associated with that, the star of 5 there at the center of the house. And I can honestly say we've been pretty healthy, over the last 3 years that we've occupied that house. So.
Yeah, and that was during the pandemic, so that was...
well, that was amazing, wasn't
Yeah,
it? We got
that
through
is
that
amazing.
one, knock on wood. We shall see. I don't know that the pandemic is over. I don't know if there's been a declaration of that or not, but we feel very fortunate, very blessed to have come through it thus far with no incidents of illness, not within our household nor within our immediate family.
Nice.
Yes.
That's
yes.
amazing. So we're at almost 50 minutes. So would you be willing to come back and talk more, especially if our listeners submit some questions, perhaps?
Absolutely. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Maybe we'll find a less loud traffic spot.
Well, yeah, this has been a really busy street.
I know, I didn't expect it to be so busy.
No, I mean, my gosh, this is a bustling little town, and lots of commerce here.
Yeah, super cute.
It is. It is. Lots of trees and generally very nice community.
So would you be able to do Feng Shui for a whole community like this?
In a sense, you can. You can.
You can?
Yes. A general overview of Feng Shui in a particular environment absolutely is possible. And some environments, you just naturally feel it intuitively, a place that people are drawn to. There's a reason why. There's a reason why people love San Francisco. It has water. Water all around it. Water is so beneficial to bringing positive energy to spaces. And I think most people will say that they are just naturally drawn to water anyway, whether it be a creek, a lake, what have you. Not surprisingly, the most expensive real estate on earth is always on the water.
Yeah.
So,
that's so true.
Yes. Yes, other areas that naturally occur in good feng shui would be on slopes, gentle slopes, hillsides. And again, you have vistas. You can see clearly from those places for a wide expanse.
Yeah.
And, people tend to love hillsides where they have those views. It feels good. You know that intuitively. It's good feng shui in those places.
Have you been to the Palouse Hills over in eastern Washington?
No, I have not.
So when you talk about gentle slopes, that's what flashed through my mind. It'd be interesting to see what your take is on that section.
I'll have to put that on my to-do list to go
Yeah.
visit that area.
Yeah, I'll give you a few places you should go check out.
Okay, sounds good.
But thank you so much, Kathy, for joining me today. Thank you for talking with me
Well,
about this.
thank you for having me.
I think that we only whet the appetite for this type of information, especially now. It's just fascinating.
Well, it's useful information, and it's pretty timeless. What worked 2,000 years ago is still applicable today.
Well, that's amazing.
Yes, it is.
Very few things can we say that about.
True. Very true.
All right. Well, yes. Thank you, and we will chat again soon.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. And thank you, listeners, for listening to us. And submit questions in the comments below. So we have been talking with Kathy of Wind and Water Feng Shui Design. And once again, I am Sarah, your host of All Dreams Considered. Thank you.
All Dreams Considered. All Dreams Considered. All Dreams Considered.